budget. We can start with page 1, and we'll go, if there's anything on page 1, say the number, be clear on the number, we'll repeat it, your request for the cut, and then we'll go from there. Councilor Vacan's up first.
Thank you, Mr. President. Line 57100 in-state travel.
I'm gonna sit down.
And I'm going to propose that we cut that. We have not typically had it, and in this budget, we see a high percentage of increase. So I don't think it's time to go from $0 to $9,000 for that.
All right, so the motion, hold on, let me just, page 1, we're all starting from page 1, then we'll go straight through. In-state travel, 57100. It's at 9,000, and the proposal is to cut the full 9,000, correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
And that was seconded. Any discussion?
Nothing other than what I said in that we haven't had it, and we do have some additional money that was put into professional services, which we have needed and used in the past, but this is brand new money, and I just don't think it's fair to the taxpayers. Thank you.
Anyone? Councilor McGivern.
Well, my recollection is in-state travel has always been part of the budget. It's been different places in the budget. At one time, departments, which we seem to be getting back to, do their own in-state travel oversight. And then that's the way it always was. And then there was a time when it went into, I believe, the mayor's budget or controlled by the mayor on a separate page. I don't remember which one, because I think at the time, the then city council had asked for better management of in-state travel and or more consolidated management of in-state travel. So I think the real question, it's not that in-state travel has never been around, it's why is it in the budget again, and do we need it?
Councilor Rivera.
For me, I know that sometimes we attend the MMA trainings out there in Worcester or in Boston or wherever they host them, and it would be nice to at least get reimbursed my gas mileage with regards to that. My $9,999 doesn't go that long enough. So if we could at least leave some money there for mileage, for when we do trainings or something like that, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
So just for a reminder, when the mayor was here, the reason this was added in discussion with the mayor is exactly what Councilor Rivera said, is sending counselors to the MMA, which would be hotel and mileage for that event. And in talking with the mayor, he gave out some numbers, and it came out to close to 14 or 15,000. And I just said, start off with the 9 and see what the council wants to do. But the intent is to allow every counselor next time around to have that ability to go. So there's a filing fee, there's a hotel, and there's mileage. That's why this number was put that way. Did I miss anyone? Councilor Jordan.
Yeah, the probability of all of us going to an MMA conference is probably low. So, but to what Councilor Rivera said, I would be fine supporting, you want to leave, what, 2,000, 2,500 in there in case there does something come up? So why don't we amend it
I'll amend my motion.
to 2,500?
I'll second that.
All right, so
Leaving
hold on.
2,500.
The mayor has his hand up.
One second,
Sorry.
we're gonna get to it. So the amendment is not to cut it all, but to cut it down to 2,500, correct?
Yep.
All right, and that was seconded. Councilor Givner was next.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was just going to reiterate that the MMA training, I did go to this last one. I thought it was really beneficial. Perhaps many don't want to go because they've been here so long and already know everything there is to know. But some of us find a lot of useful information at these kind of events. I met a lot of other city councilors from different cities and got to talk to them and network a bit and learn about what other cities and towns are doing in regards to their different budgets and how they do trainings or any number of things. So I think this is a nice thing to have in here. I support educational budget for all of our departments, and I think for city council, considering we're elected officials and we don't necessarily come into this these positions with a lot of background knowledge of how municipal government works. I think it's really helpful. So I would vote to keep it where it is. Thanks.
Counselor Anderson Burgos.
Yeah, I agree with Counselor Givner. So I've been on council for going on 6 years now, and I've never attended one of the trainings because at that time I just couldn't afford to go. And I had no idea that this line item even existed. As Counselor McGivern mentioned, that it used to be in other areas of this budget, and I never caught on to that. So it's only fair that with the newer counselors, we should have this line item available. That's it.
The mayor had his hand up. Motion to suspend rules, allow the mayor to speak, and this will just be throughout now if there's questions for him on any part of the budget. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
I hope it goes without saying.
To the mayor.
He's gone.
You have to unmute, Mayor.
Hey, Councilors. Hey, good evening.
Good evening.
Evening.
Hey, yes, you're absolutely right, Mr. President. That budget there is assuming every member of the council wants to participate in the MMA annual meeting in January. The Mass Municipal Association annual meeting is like the largest homecoming of Massachusetts, where leadership from cities and towns across the Commonwealth participate in different breakout sessions, and also there's a trade show, learn best practices, connect with other colleagues. I've been sending department head, or the last January we sent some staff to head out, but thought that this would be an opportunity, a great opportunity for each of you that might want to join in. But that dollar amount assumes that all of you go. But it's fine one way or another. I just thought we'd throw a little bit of opportunity there for the counselors in case there was any interest to want to be part of that. That's all.
All right. So the motion. Yep. Councilor Jordan.
Yeah, just, I know times have changed, but again, I've been here a few years. I've never once had the city pick up any hotel accommodation for me ever in my entire years of service here, and I've somehow managed. Number two, gas money, yeah, no problem. You need your gas money down, or if there's an admission fee, no problem. But, you know, do we really need that much money? I mean, for $9,000 to go down to a conference for whatever number of days it is, I don't really think it's realistic. But let's say that half the people on the city council, scheduling wise, I mean, some of us, you know, a lot of people work. You might not be able to get the time off. It's not that you're not, I don't think it's noble. But nevertheless, it would seem to me that we allow a certain amount for people to drive or whatever to go or to register and take it from there. And then if we have this mass interest that everybody's going to go, maybe as it gets closer, we could move some money back into the line from somewhere else as another source. That's another possibility. This doesn't have to be. As we know, the new pattern here is to do supplemental budgets, right? So you could add it to the line.
Councilor McGivern was next.
Thank you, Mr. President. I've had the pleasure of, over the years, going to 3 MMA annual meetings and found them incredibly informative, brought back a lot of information, did a lot of networking. Matter of fact, the last one I went to, we went down on Friday night, and on Saturday morning, the city of Holyoke was presenting 2 workshops ourselves. One was on it was out of the industrial, at the time called OPED, was now, but at the time called Industrial Affairs. And it was out of their office, where it was an economic development plan that was modeled after what HEDIC does in the area of a number of economic development packages. And the second one was the planning board, which at the time they weren't one department, which was about we just had recently done the full study on a plan itself. And the odd thing was we got there on Friday night, a few of us, and the 2 key players in the workshops got stuck in an ice storm and didn't make it the next day. So we did the presentation, and we didn't have Zoom and all that great stuff back then, but we did the presentation for them. I was very involved with the planning department itself at the time, so it was we were able to get without too much for materials to get it out. But overnight cost is reimbursable if it's approved by the department head and approved by the mayor. And I agree. I don't think there will ever be 13 city councilors going to the same conference or same meeting at one time, and we don't know who's going to be on the board in January, because I know I won't be going to this conference, but what's going to happen with the number of people, that newly elected people who would get even bigger advantage out of going. So I don't mind reducing the number, but I think we got to figure out somehow what number makes sense. It's not going to be 13, but maybe 4 or 5 people do want to go.
Counselor Givner.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to add, too, that the MMA has several different trainings throughout the year. The Boston event is the biggest one. That breaks down, this $9,000 number breaks down to about $700 a piece for, 13 city councilors, which I don't think is unreasonable for a full year of training events. So maybe people would be more inclined to go to things if they knew they could get reimbursed. And also, like, at the Boston conference, there were also, like, cannabis workshops and, different workshops on municipal finance and stuff. So I can't say enough about how useful something like this is, especially for newer counselors.
Counselor Rivera.
Thank you. So I also agree that I don't believe all 13 of us will be attending at the same time. But I think one of the things for me is, and Councilor McGivern kind of like highlighted it, is that in January it might not be the same council. And I remember my first time coming in. MMA sent me the email to attend for new counselors, and I was excited. And technically, all the stuff had to come out of my pocket, and I had just resigned from my position. So, like, at the end of the day, not all of us make the same amount of money. So, yeah, some of us can sacrifice to that extent. Some of us can't. Some of us are giving up family time. Some of us are giving up money from their own pockets to make sure that we're educated and we're trained to the extent that we need to be, if you want to. Nobody's paying for my education or any of that, and they shouldn't be. Like, I'm not asking for that. But with regards to us being able to further our understanding of municipal finance, and our issues that we got going on throughout the city, because they do offer a variety of different trainings. And at the same time, if we do welcome 2 or 3 new counselors that have never done this before, these trainings would actually lay a foundation for them, at least, so they could understand like what they're getting themselves into. Because to be honest, this like throwing us into the lion's den. That's cool. I mean, we've survived, right, these 2 years, but that's not necessarily how it should function if you want a sustainable government in the long run. At least not in my mind, right? So thank you.
Counselor Dahlman.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I believe in MMA. I've been to several, I haven't been to the big conferences down in Boston, but we had some up here. I remember going to one up in UMass when Barney Frank came in and spoke, and met several counselors from the area. Also in the town hall of Amherst, I think, and I think one in Sturbridge over the years. And sometimes they meet like quarterly, so it's, they have like a little dinner meeting or a coffee meeting, and you meet for a couple hours, so, you can learn a lot. It doesn't have to be a whole weekend. And, I think it's very beneficial. And you're right, some people can't afford to go on their own, and you're spending $200, $300 a night for a hotel room. But there's other avenues that you can do, and maybe share it with somebody or whatever. I don't believe in cutting this, the whole thing out. I do believe there should be some money left in there, but I think 2,500 is a fair number.
So the motion is to cut the 9,000 down to 2,500. Oh, what? Councilor Rivera?
Just one more question, though. If we don't spend all the money, does the money stay in there? Like, what happens to the money if it doesn't get spent?
You can have it moved to another line item. You have to vote.
It gets reallocated, kind of like all the other things, right?
Or it becomes free cash at the end of the year.
All right. Thank you.
All right, so motion is to cut it down to 2,500. The clerk will call the roll. If you vote yes, you're voting for that cut.
Anderson Burgos,
Yes.
Bartley,
Yes.
Givner,
No.
Jordan,
Yes.
Maldonado Velez,
Yes.
McGee,
Yes.
McGivern,
No.
Murphy Ramboletti,
Yes.
Puello,
Yes.
Israel Rivera,
No.
Jenny Rivera,
No.
Tallman,
Yes.
Bacon.
Yes.
9 yeas, 4 nays.
With your vote, you approve that cut. Anything else on page 1? Seeing no one. Page 2. Counselor Jordan.
Yeah, I have the one relative to the CAFO position to eliminate that until the job is created. So that would be line 51104, the 125,000.
All right, so motion is to cut 125,000 from 51104. Is there a second?
Second.
That is seconded. Under discussion.
Yeah, just briefly. Yeah, I'm very warm to the idea. The mayor comes forward with a good suggestion about having the CAFO job. Unfortunately, we have to figure out what we're going to do with all that. It could require charter change. It could require ordinance change. Well, at a minimum, it's going to require a series of ordinance changes. We're just not ready there yet for this. And some point during the fiscal year, we'll have to get this figured out together. And at that point, then, if the council wants to do it, then we should definitely fund it for whatever portion of the year is left. If it happens, this money cannot be spent at this time. So therefore, we shouldn't fund it at this time. And I don't think that's particularly controversial. With just a TBD at this point.
Anyone further? Counselor Rivera.
If the mayor's present, can I suspend the rules?
Well, it's already under suspension as a reminder, so you can ask the mayor a question.
So, Mayor Garcia, weird, but it's hard for me to say it that way. So how much of an impact, does this impact the plan of the CAFO? Because I kind of agree with Councilor Jordan. If we have a lot of processes to get through before we actually create this position. But if for some odd reason we're able to get through it, is it better to have it there now, or would it be harder for later on for us to be able to pull this together?
Thanks for the question, Counselor. I think it's just in the matter of preference and how quickly I can achieve consensus with the council to get the position created and then later funded through other means, whether we move funds from another line item or we address it when doing a supplemental, assuming, we get the position created in the ordinance and then, the support of the body to approve funding when there's a proposal in front of you. So, Councilor Jordan is right that, it's not like I can hire somebody on July 1. There's still some steps to take. The big important one right now is to get the position created and reflect in the ordinance. And then step 2 from there would be to put a funding proposal and hopefully have the support of this body to support it later.
Thank you.
Anyone further? Counselor Murphy Ramboletti.
I just feel like this is, one of the things that's been really frustrating in my first term as a counselor is how long it feels like things take. And this feels like a proactive step and something that we actually have control over. There's a lot of things that I understand need to happen, but I think we can do both at the same time. And I would just, hate for us to kind of prolong it by not funding this position. I feel like the mayor's presentation about it was really thoughtful. So those are just my thoughts. Thank you.
Anyone further? Councilor McGivern.
The mayor's presentation did make sense. This position makes sense at some point, but it's complicated. It's not by funding it doesn't create the position, and it's not just by ordinance. The very crux of our government is the key people in the financial positions. The treasurer is elected. The auditor is appointed by the city council. The assessors are somewhat independent after being appointed by the city council. The auditor is supposed to be independent, but we lost that when they stopped doing the exam itself on the state level. And tax collector is appointed by the council, but also a little different here. So it's not only probably heading for a charter change, even if we have 2/3 or a unanimous vote of the city council and the mayor in favor of it, there's a very good chance the state's going to tell us it has to be a ballot question because it's a direct change of our form of government, and that's the hardest thing to change in the charter. So I agree with everything that's been said. There's no right or wrong on this issue, but I think it's going to be, unfortunately, a long time before there's going to be a need to pay someone that won't be a full salary this fiscal year. So therefore, I support the cut.
Councilor Jordan?
Yeah, the other thing I wanted to mention, hand in hand, to Councilor Murphy-Ramboletti's point, we have in charter and rules the whole conversion of the treasurer position too. We need to get that moving. Maybe we can do that hand in hand because that's a piece of all of this, going to an appointed treasurer. And that definitely will have to go to the ballot because you're removing an elected position and making it an appointed position. So we definitely have to get moving on some of these things, and we may have to put before the voters a whole package, whether it's CAFO, the treasurer change, and whatnot. So if we're going to do these things, I agree, we should get moving.
Councilor Bacon?
Thank you. He stole most of my line, which was basically, it would be good to start with the consolidation of two of the positions that we had general agreement on first, which we still have time to get on the ballot this year, should we want to move in that direction. Thank you.
Councilor Bartley?
Yeah, I just want to point out, Mr. President, that cutting the budget doesn't slow things down, doesn't speed things up. Basically, the one that controls the budget is the mayor. So if the mayor wants to file an appropriation, it can come before us. And to me, this is the cart way before the horse. So when we're making cuts, I hope all of us keep in mind that the money will likely go back to free cash if necessary. But right now, if you leave it in the budget the way it is, you're saying basically to the mayor and to any department head, you can do what you well please with that $125,000, regardless of whether you think it's going to be, because we don't deal with intradepartmental transfers. So that can be used in any other way. And I've heard what councilors say. We want to move things along. We want to advance the government. Okay, we're all on board with that. But there's no teeth behind this, Mr. President, because there's no ordinance. And now we're understanding we may need a charter change. So I think if we get our act together first, then the mayor at lightning speed can come in with a financial transfer and we can vote accordingly. And I think that should be the overarching principle for all of these cuts. I don't think you're casting aspersions on any single department head or any department. I'm hopeful that we get plenty of counselors that want to go to the MMA, and I think it's a really nice touch by the mayor to add this. I can say that, and just speaking to the prior one, I've been to 3 of the conferences, and I know I was the only Holyoke City councilor at all 3 of the ones I attended. And it wasn't that long ago. It was 2013, 15, and 17. So I'm just saying, I never saw another councilor from Holyoke there, or for that matter, a few others from Western Mass. But maybe that's because they don't have mayors to support them. So in this case, the mayor's making a really nice touch with the MMA. And then with this specific one, I think you heard councilors from all points of view say that we really want to support this position. Well, let's support it when we know what the position really is about. Thank you.
Councilor Tallman?
Yeah, this is a position I think most of us are aware of and that we'd like to see happen, but putting the money there ahead of time, I just don't believe it's the right thing to do. So we'll have to see. They say the wheels of government take time, things go slowly sometimes, but you want to get things done right too. So you want to put these positions together that can be, and then if we have to have this chief financial officer, administrative officer, it'd be something that we know is going to work for the community. So I go along with Councilor Jordan's cut.
Seeing no one further, the clerk will call the roll. If you vote yes, you're voting to cut the 125.
Anderson Burgos,
Yes.
Bartley,
Yes.
Givner,
Yes.
Jordan,
Yes.
Maldonado Velez,
Yes.
McGee,
Yes.
McGivern,
Yes.
Murphy Ramboletti,
No.
Puello,
Yes.
Israel Rivera,
Yes.
Jenny Rivera,
Yes.
Tallman,
Yes.
Bacon.
Yes.
12 yeas, 1 nay.
With your vote, you cut the 125. Anything else on page 2? Page 3. Page 4. If I go too fast, stop me.
Oh, you have a
Page-
20, you have a 24-second clock.
24 seconds. All right. It's like the pitch clock. Page 4. Procurement. Page 5.
I had one here, Mr. President.
Counselor Jordan.
Okay. We had relative to sick leave buyback, Mr. President, line item 51510, to remove the 5,000. The chief assessor came in and said that was not needed at this time. It was sort of a placeholder. No retirements are anticipated in this fiscal year, and she said we could cut that, and if for some reason she thought there would be a retirement, that she would come forward. But she does not, according to the budget hearing, anticipate any needing these funds this coming year.
That is correct.
Second.
So, motion is to cut the full 5,000 from 51510 on page 5. That was seconded. Clerk will call roll. If you vote yes, you're voting to cut that.
Anderson Burgos,
Yes.
Bartley,
Yes.
Givner,
Yes.
Jordan,
Yes.
Maldonado Velez,
Yes.
McGee,
Yes.
McGivern,
Yes.
Murphy Ramboletti,
Yes.
Puello,
Yes.
Israel Rivera,
Yes.
Jenny Rivera,
Yes.
Tallman,
Yes.
Bacon.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
Vote you approve that one. Anything else on 5? Page 6, treasurer.
Treasurer, I had one, Mr. President.
Counselor Jordan.
Small, but nevertheless, on overtime, 51300, $1,000. We discussed this, and the view was to use comp time. There'll be one in another department that's a similar issue versus having the actual overtime.
So motion is cut the full 1,000?
To cut the 1,000. That's a new item.
All right, so page 6, 51300, cut the full amount of $1,000. Is there a second?
Second.
Under discussion?
Yeah, just briefly, basically, they can use comp time. They have an ability to use comp time. We discussed it with Rory, and they have used comp time from time to time. He sort of wanted this as a gap filler too, but we would really like to keep it to the comp time so we stay on budget with what the salaries are and to maneuver the staff. I mean, this for $1,000, this cannot be that many hours over the course of a year. So we would ask the department head to maneuver accordingly so that they're able to flex their schedule to either come in or come late if there is ever needed for extra time. So he said that is what they've done in the past, so we would like him to continue that practice, please.
Counselor McGivern.
I think there's always room for both comp time and overtime. I don't favor doing solely a comp time model. I think sometimes overtime is necessary, and it's also an incentive to keep the employees you need for something maybe on a Saturday morning or late evening, when you're under the gun. Comp time is good, but keeping in mind when it comes to a budget point of view, comp time just means someone works at different hours than their regular hours, and we don't have someone working the regular hours. So I think I don't know if we call it a hybrid is the correct way to say it, but I think a department head should always have the option for both.
Counselor Givner.
Thank you. I agree partially with Councilor McGivern. however, do feel like you should just get paid for overtime, because a lot of times it seems like people are just working more than they need to, and they can't necessarily just take off some other time. I think we see a lot of people overworked, so I'm in favor of using both, but I'm definitely not in favor of getting rid of the financials for for overtime.
Counselor Rivera.
I think for me, and in my prior role, I had to manage comp time amongst 13 different staff members, and that it was a headache to manage comp time and to keep everyone still to be on the same page, because they had to spend it by a certain day or a certain week or a certain payroll period, and if they didn't spend it, then technically I kind of felt like I robbed you for some time, and in a sense, that kind of mitigates that feeling of robbing someone from some time if they're not able to spend that comp time within that payroll period. Because you're not going to comp time something for 6 months, right? You can't comp time for 6 months, 7 months. You have to comp, whatever you comped, you have to get rid of it within that same payroll period. At least that's common practice that I know of. So I guess I'm in favor of keeping this the way it is, just so that there is that flexibility and it's not that much of a nuisance for the actual public administrator that's doing the job. So yeah, thank you.
Counselor Bacon.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would just note that this has been the most heavily supported department in the city for the past year. So I think they haven't been lacking for resources from the taxpayers and the city council. Thank you.
Anyone further? Counselor Tallman.
Yeah, I can understand Counselor Jordane's cut here. There was nothing in there before, last year. And I wasn't here. I apologize. I wasn't here that night for some of these department heads for this one actually. But sometimes when you're using overtime, how do you pick? Does she get it? Does he get it next time? Does she? And sometimes there could be a problem with that too. So I'm in favor of the $1,000 cut.
Anyone else? Seeing none, the clerk will call the roll. If you vote yes, you're voting to cut the full 1,000.
Anderson Burgos,
No.
Bartley,
Yes.
Givner,
No.
Jordan,
Yes.
Maldonado Velez,
No.
McGee,
No.
McGivern,
No.
Murphy Ramboletti,
No.
Puello,
Yes.
Israel Rivera,
No.
Jenny Rivera,
No.
Tallman,
Yes.
Bacon.
Yes.
5 yeas, 8 nays.
Mr. President,
That one doesn't pass. Counselor Tallman.
could I change that possibly? We have like a hybrid, as Councilor McGivern stated, it's cut $500.
Second.
Second.
Motion is to cut 51300, the overtime, by 500, so down to 500. And that was seconded. Clerk will call the roll.
Just on the record,
Yep,
Councilor
sorry.
McGivern didn't say that. Councilor McGivern said hybrid with
Hybrid.
1,000 and comp time option.
Oh, okay.
Under
Sorry.
discussion or no? No
Oh,
discussion.
sure. No, I
I thought you wanted a little bit of both,
Counselor
so.
Rivera.
Yeah. So just because of what Councilor Tallman had mentioned right before we voted, the difficulty of balancing who you want to give money to and who not, I wouldn't be able to support the cut just because of that, because then it would make it a lot harder to be able to actually do that balancing. If we're going to give it to them, we give them either the full 1,000 or we don't give it to them at all. It's one or the other, because that's how I feel, at least. Because then that little balancing act makes it more difficult for a manager. For me, I'm taking the perspective as a manager and sitting in that seat, like how am I balancing this, right? Just to be correct, I think, what is it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 employees aside from the treasurer, right? So it's balancing all 5 of them within that 1,000. If we bring it down to 500, I'm assuming that's $100 to each person if they were to balance it and pass it out. That's the only reason why I'm not going to support it. I like you, though. You're my guy.
Counselor Jordan.
I'll make just 2 points. One is the department has managed without overtime forever till now without overtime. So yet it's managed perfectly fine without it. Number 2 is this is a department that is also receiving $300,000 a year in special services with extra people in addition that actually exceeds the entire 275 that is coming in here to help them. So what you're really seeing is an invisible line here of also double this. So even despite the fact they have 300,000 in added support, then you have this budget. And amidst all that, we can't find $1,000. Okay.
Next was Counselor Rivera.
So I have to disagree, mostly because it's the same thing when we're dealing with other departments that don't, like, there are a lot of other departments that have inflated budgets to the extent. And if we're coming to say that because it's never happened before and they've been functioning perfectly fine, if they've been functionally perfectly fine, we wouldn't be contracting out services to help our department. Historically, we've been like sending money back. We've been fined. There's a variety of different things that have gone on in the Treasurer's Department. It could be because they haven't been funding the overtime and the extra help overall. So there's a reason why we're here, right? There's a reason why there's extra spending. There's a reason why they're asking for these requests. It didn't just happen overnight. These are things that kind of culminated to the point that we are now. We can't continue to push things down because we will continue to bottleneck every time, and that is exactly where we are as a community. And I kind of ran on the premise of trying to change the bottlenecking here. So for me, I'm gonna stand where I stand, and no disrespect to anyone.
Counselor Givner.
Just to reiterate that point, I think we all know about the snowball effect that has been seen in the treasurer's office. We need to fix it, and I don't think we need to hold anything back from them for now. Maybe next year it looks different, and we can cut their budget by a ton, but in the meantime, they're asking for what they need, and I think the treasurer's office is pretty important. We've been having a lot of problems because of that office. It's a big part of, like, probably a lot of other issues in various departments in this building. So I will not vote to cut from the treasurer's budget.
Counselor Anderson Burgos.
Basically, Counselor Givner and Counselor Rivera made all the points I was going to make, and I hate repeating. So what I remember when we had Rory in here was, well, some of the comments that were directed. How could have this had happened? What's going on in this department? Well, this is one way we can support that department because they have a lot of work in front of them, a ton of work to figure out and fix what has been wrong for so many years. I can't imagine, I mean, I can, but it's $1,000 that we're sitting here spending all this time for. It's only $1,000. Let's get frying to the big fish. That's it.
Counselor Bacon.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I'm going to articulate what I think is the position of the taxpayers that we're here to represent, and that's who elects us. And we're not talking about $1,000, we're talking about $301,000 in the Treasurer's Department. Now, they didn't get to see the $300,000 in the budget because it doesn't show. But that money has been expended to correct that department. And that is, I think, historically the most money that's ever been spent in a year to fix a department that 5, 6 short years ago, we had spent thousands of dollars to fix it once before and had been assured that all policies and procedures were in place and that things would go forward smoothly. I wasn't the only one here then. There were a few other counselors in the room at that time. So it's not that nothing has ever been done, but I think the discussion is bigger than $1,000. And so I think we just need to really try to get the ship righted there. And I think it needs closer scrutiny, not less. And I would also add that our current acting treasurer, who indicated no desire to keep the position and advocated strongly for the consolidation between treasurer and collector in the budget hearing, remains of that mind and is asking us to please move forward with that. Thank you.
Counselor Jordan.
Yeah, Mr. President, again, it's actually even bigger than 301,000. It's 343,000 because I didn't mention in the discussion, but I will now, we're adding another full-time job here too. There's a $42,408 position also being added that I wasn't proposing to cut. Rory sold me on that he needed this extra job, so I'll vote to give him the extra job. Literally, I don't know what more this council can do to bend over backwards to quote unquote straighten out the treasurer's department. 300,000 in consulting services, which by the way, they want 900,000. I'm not sold on that other 600,000 yet. The added position, and it's really to be, my point is it's like, and you want overtime too. It's like, you're getting a whole nother job. So this conversation to me, and what I get worried about when I start seeing new lines, it's not today's budget, it's the future budget, because then they're going to say, oh, well, it's a compromise now. Next year it'll be $5,000. So this is the camel's nose under the tent, essentially. And then it's 5, and then it's 10, and we need it. And then, the same arguments you'll hear from certain counselors in this room who will say, oh, but, do whatever they can. They're cleaning up the mess. And so all you have to do is have a pig pile of a big mess and then just keep saying, I'm cleaning it up. And you get unlimited funds from this city government. That's how we operate here. So that's okay. That's fine. It's just a different vision, and I understand that. Thank you.
Counselor Givner.
Thanks. I refuse to believe that if people understand what the treasurer's office does and how much money they control and try to put in the right places and try to figure out, that they would support not supporting the treasurer's office. We got here somehow. So I guess I would just say, how did we get here? I wasn't here for that. Many in this room were. I'm sorry that there was a promise that the treasurer's office was straightened out, by spending whatever was spent at the time. But we're here now, and the problem still exists, and it's not going to fix itself. So they're asking for things for a reason, and I will definitely honor that.
Counselor McGivern.
Just a quick thought, Mr. President. Put aside the outside consulting service that was hired last year, and I made it clear that I will not vote for monies for this year until we find out the work that's been done for the first year, which I think is more than preliminary, but sets up for the real goal, which is long-term resolutions for the treasurer's office. It has been a nightmare in there. But if you look at the typical general fund budget that we see every year, this proposal is down $26,897 from last year. And we're sitting here for the last 20 minutes talking about $500. Let's let the departments live with what they got, because it's not a whole lot.
Counselor Rivera.
I think Councilor McGivern kind of just like dropped the mic. I might have to not say nothing on that. So I'm just going to concede my time, I guess.
All right. Counselor Tomlin.
I think we can stay another 20 minutes. I don't mind arguing at this point, because I think it's important that there was a lot of money spent, last year. How much for the next year? I think we fronted them for 2 months to find out what their work done, the outside help, is looking at the Treasury Department. And it's really, you don't fix something by throwing money at it. I don't believe, and I know, there's a way to sort of balance things out. How do you look at, how can we get this done without, arguing over $1,000? It is money. Our job here is to cut we can't add to the budget. We can cut the budget. And if we do cut it, and they need some more money later on, and they give a good reason why I need somebody to come in on a Saturday or a Sunday, fine. We can find money somewhere, down the road. But I think it's important that, we look at, as some of my colleagues said, the taxpayers' money. It's their money. They're the ones paying this budget. They're the ones that elect us. So I'm going along still with the $500 cut.
Seeing no one further, the clerk will call the roll. If you vote yes, you're voting to cut it to 500.
Anderson Burgos?
No.
Bartley?
No.
Givner?
No.
Jordan?
Yes.
Maldonado Velez?
No.
McGee?
No.
McGivern?
No.
Murphy Ramboletti?
No.
Coelho?
Yes.
Israel Rivera?
No.
Jenny Rivera?
No.
Tallman?
Yes.
Bacon?
Yes.
4 yeas, 9 nays.
With your vote, that one does not pass. Anything else on 6? 7. 8, tax collector. 9, solicitor. 10, personnel. 11, computer system. 12, city council admin. 13, city clerk. 14, 15, register of voters. 16, conservation. 17, planning and economic development.
I have a couple here, Mr. President.
All right, so Councilor Jordan first.
Okay. The first one up is let's see here, I'll make sure I get the correct line number. Education and training, 53190 to reduce from 8,000 to 3,000. This we heard at the budget hearing that he only needed 3,000, and Aaron said we could cut that from 8 to 3.
Second.
So on page 17, education and training 53190, cut it by 5,000. That was seconded. Under discussion. Go straight forward. Clerk will call the roll. If you vote yes, you're voting to cut it by 5,000.
Anderson Burgos,
Yes.
Bartley,
Yes.
Givner,
Yes.
Jordan,
Yes.
Maldonado Velez, McGee,
Yes.
McGivern,
Yes.
Murphy Remboliti,
Yes.
Puello, Puello,
Yes.
Israel Rivera,
Yes.
Jenny Rivera,
Yes.
Tallman,
Yes.
Bacon.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
For your vote, you approve that one. Councilor Jordan, you had another one, or?
Well, I did. It's relative to the overtime. This would be 51300. I'm just briefly go over the same points. This was for overtime of 5,000. I'm going to propose that we reduce it from 5,000 to 2,500. Basically, I had asked Aaron about the use of comp time. He said, absolutely, we could use comp time. He said 5,000's on the high end. I probably don't need 5,000, so pick a number. I'm going to go with 2,500 to reduce it, and for that reason, I'm going to support a cut here from 5 to 2,500 on the overtime versus comp time.
Second.
Motion is to cut 51300 by 2,500. Anyone further? Councilor McGivern.
I'm not going to repeat everything we said. I think we all made our points on overtime. Just one thing, of all the departments and the need for overtime, for this type of administrative duties, this is the department that needs it the most. They've been added at least three bodies that, correctfully meet after 5 o'clock at night, and they provide clerical administrative support to these bodies. And for the most part, what Aaron told us is that's what the overtime is used for, not for himself, not for the big salary positions, but for people who need to support the license board, the redevelopment authority, HEDIC,
Planning.
and planning itself. Sorry. And it's a department that is pulled and tugged. And like I said, comp time's fine under the right circumstances, but comp time is limited, and we don't always get a bang from our buck when we give comp time, because we now have vacancies and work that needs to be done during the regular office hours too.
Anyone further? Councilor Bacon.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would just note that if we do go to 2,500, it would be 1,000 more than is evident for the full year that we have information available. Thank you.
Anyone further? Hearing none, clerk will call roll. If you vote yes, you're voting to cut it by 2,500.
Anderson Burgos,
No.
Bartley,
Yes.
Givner,
No.
Jordan,
Yes.
Maldonado Velez,
No.
McGee,
No.
McGivern,
No.
Murphy Ramboletti,
No.
Coelho,
Yeah.
Israel Rivera,
No.
Jenny Rivera,
No.
Tallman,
Yes.
Bacon.
Yes.
5 yeas, 8 nays.
We vote that one does not pass. Anything further on this page? Seeing none. 18. 19, Police Department. The chief is on in case there's questions for the chief. $20. 21. 'Fire Department, 22. 23. Page 24, Department of Building and Codes. 25. 26, Weights and Measures. 27, Emergency Management. 28, Department of Forestry. 29, Public Safety. 30, School Department. Counselor Jordan.
Not for a cut, but just for an informational in this one. These are estimates, so we're just going to roll with these for now. But theoretically, these could be subject to reduction at a later time if these numbers don't turn out to be the case, you know? So I'm not going to propose because I don't have the information to do anything with these, but those are big line items, obviously, and we really don't have a capacity at this time based on the information provided to address those.
One thing to point out, the Anthony So did give me the budget book. It's
Yes.
on everyone's desk.
I do see that, thank
So
you.
that is there for you, as he said he would get it to you. Counselor McGivern.
Hey, it is, and it's a well thought out presentation of the budget. It does put things into categories. It does put expenses and talks about revenue. It talks about everything the school department's doing. And I think it's the third year we've had this type of presentation, and I welcome it. And it's open, it's transparent, but it's not a real line item budget because it doesn't break it down into individual positions. It doesn't break it down into individual expenses itself. So I agree with Councilor Jordan. A lot of what we're seeing right now with schools is just projected revenues like always, but projected expenses. I think they're meeting tonight on the budget themselves, and we need to get back, especially if the receivership is going to end soon. We need to get back to we don't have line item control, but we have a school committee that always had line item control prior to receivership, and we need to get back to that and find out, because we were made a promise by the Commissioner of Education that in order to quote unquote save the public schools, they're not going to spend extra money. Quote unquote, they've destroyed our public schools and are spending a lot of extra money.
Yes. You're here.
Counselor Jordan.
Yeah, just another quick point to add on to what the finance chairman said is they also haven't passed the state budget, so the best we have at this point is the Senate Ways and Means budget, so that's what we're going by. But as far as people here at the local level that have to pass a budget, how do we have the information to do our jobs at this point? We don't.
All right. Rivera, Counselor Rivera.
I have a question too with regards to this. So right here it says for the budget, am I seeing 111 million overall, right? Or am I reading it wrong?
Yep.
Is that all? That's not all city funds, right? Like, how much of the 111 million is state and federal funding? Like 90 million?
12.4.
So it's 12.4 million that the city gives towards the 111
That's the
million.
net school spending amount that was told to us so far.
Okay. So, all right. So I'm just trying to understand for me, and plus so that I can explain it to the people, right? So at the same time, so what we're saying is that city taxpayers pay 12.4 million into a $111.8 million budget.
The state picks up.
All right. Thank you.
Anyone further? Page 31, city engineer.
So, Mr. President,
Councilor Bacon.
I have a question on this one. And if my understanding is correct, I think we're in the same situation with the grant manager writer of line 51107. Because in the meeting, we were talking about that it would be a Schedule A position, but then they articulated that it is more, there are more responsibilities that they're seeing will be sitting with that position, but they hadn't developed it into a description. So it seemed like they were a little bit ahead of themselves because they saw it as a higher level position than what is in this budget. So I think we need to take it out until we get the job figured out and in legal form similar to the CAFO situation, although I don't think it's quite as complex.
All right, so what's your motion, Councilor?
It would be to cut the 63,340, not saying that we won't ever do the position, but it needs to be created first, and then we need outside counsel to look at the grading of it to properly put it, if it is in fact a Schedule A position.
All right, so the motion is 51107, page 31. Cut the full amount of $63,340. Second?
Second.
Under discussion, Councilor McGivern.
I would, I understand the logic and don't disagree with it, but I would willing to take a chance on this because this position is, we've learned is so much needed in the engineering DPW. We're losing out on a lot of money because nobody is looking for the money or writing the grants and working with the state and so forth to get it. You know, we see hundreds of thousands of dollars come into the police department, the fire department, and even the schools. And they all have someone dedicated towards this task, not always a position that's called or defined the way it is. I understand, and it was talked about during the budget hearing, the schedule, but it's not as complicated as the CFO and I think it's something that we may not be able to transfer money until sometime in the fall. And if we get a position and the mayor or the city engineer and DPW superintendent can hire at some time before that, I think it'd be worth its money in returns just by getting someone on board. So you can't, until it's created, they can't hire them, but we can keep the money there.
Councilor Rivera.
I was gonna. I think Councilor McGivern kind of said what I was gonna say with regards to the position. I think that these positions in general are valuable to a lot of our departments. I kind of wish that the position was a larger position that came out of the mayor's office, so that way they can tackle a lot more grants than just one specific category. But whatever's best, I guess, right? And this is the approach that they're taking. There are a lot of dollars that could help us with regards to how we plan our city and traffic with regards to grant funding, and this position would totally help out with regards to this. But I guess for me also is what would be preventing us from this making this a position other than just voting on approving the funding?
Mr. President, if I may.
Oh, Councilor Bacon, sorry.
So There is no issue if they actually want to fill the grant manager writer position. That exists on Schedule A. And if this stays the way it is, that is the position that is funded. I was only saying what I said because they were explaining that they wanted the position to be something different. So then it created a different discussion. But they might, and maybe they have, and I'll defer to the finance chair. In this regard, maybe they're just going to go ahead with the Schedule A position. They could.
I would assume, and
They
I'm
could.
sorry if I'm talking on a turn. I would assume that if that's what they put forward, that's what I'm voting on, right? The Schedule A position. And if later on they got to change it, then I would think that they would need to come to us to ask for the change.
Well, right, and I only brought it up because they said that in the
Okay.
meeting.
All right. No, that's perfect.
So-
Thank you. Thank you for the clarification. Thank you.
Anyone further?
Well, I have a question then. I mean, I'm supportive of again, I'm supportive of these things provided they're going to actually happen. I don't just give money in departments for things that might happen. So my question is if this job is actually can be filled and will be filled at this position, at this salary, then great, let's do it. But if it's not,
They said.
I don't know. Do you have insights as to that? So
Schedule A is what I think.
Counselor
I don't know. We have the mayor.
Yeah,
the mayor's still with us,
I was
but
about to ask.
yeah.
Yeah, let's ask the mayor where we are with that because this
That would help us.
this role is very important.
To the mayor.
I'm here. Yes, it is.
Oh, we lost you.
We lost him.
Schedule A position.
Mr. Mayor, you're coming
I know
in.
at
You're coming in and out of the meeting.
Hold on, give me 1 minute.
Can you go to another
you hear me?
location?
Yeah,
Yeah,
That's
good
better.
now.
Go ahead now.
How about now?
Good.
All right. Yes, it is a Schedule A. I think what happened at that meeting, counselors, is you had the chair of the Public Works Commission. I was disconnected a little from the work that the city engineer was putting forward. So it is a Schedule A position. It's a grant writing position specifically for infrastructure-related needs as it relates to what the DPW can go after as far as federal grants are concerned and infrastructure projects are concerned.
All right, Mr.
Councilor
President,
Bacon, yeah.
I'll withdraw my motion, understanding that clarification.
All right, so motion, councilors are trying the motion to cut 51107.
Yep.
Anything else for city engineer? 32, Public Works. 33. 34. 35. 36. Highways and Bridges. 37. Auto Equipment Maintenance. 38. Refuge Collection. 39. Parking Facilities. 40. Board of Health. 41. 42, Council on Aging. 43. 44, Veteran Services.
I had one here, Mr. President.
Councilor Jordan.
I was going to propose a $10,000 reduction on direct veteran benefits, 57700, on the premise that this was funded at $300,000 in last year's budget, and then transfers were moved out another 60,000 from it, and then they've had other transfers moving out. So for whatever reason, we're not spending anywhere near the actual money we need to, I would think, or we hopefully can be, on veterans benefits. We would love to spend all this money on veterans benefits, but for whatever reason, they're not using all the money that we're giving. And it's kind of too bad because the state does reimburse us 75% of every dollar that we spend out of this account. So we want to give out as much as humanly possible. But having said that, it was reduced to 240, and they're still not even spending the 240. So I think a minor cut of 10,000 here would be appropriate. And if they could give out more, we would give them more.
I'll second that.
All right, so motion is to cut 10,000 from 57700, so from 250 to 240. Our discussion, Councilor McGivern.
Jesus went into great detail the last 3 budget hearings, and the year that it jumped up, there was a influx of veterans in the city, a lot of them homeless, a lot of them that were, for different reasons, camping in the city itself. I think we all know that this isn't by choice, this is by law. A veteran that is qualified comes through, they establish the, it's kind of not residency, but they establish that they are a veteran that is eligible for these types of benefits. They get them, and as Councilor Dreding said, we get 3/4 of it's reimbursed by the state. So it looks like last year it didn't go up to the 260 was what was at one time in the budget, and the mayor's already cut 10,000 from it. So I mean, one way or the other, they're going to get it. So I'm sure this is enough to get them through half the year, if not more.
Right.
So what do you think, Joe, if I may, Mr. President?
I just thought I'd get on the fence.
I mean, if you think they're going to spend it, we'll keep it there. But it seems like they keep doing transfer after transfer out of the account and not actually spending it on.
And as you know, we ask him, why is there a surplus? And he said, well, the quote unquote, I don't want to say homeless, but the transit population of veterans was reduced from what it was the year before. So it's a moving target. We can cut 10, but we'll always have to put it back in if they need it.
Sure. Okay, that makes sense.
Councilor Bacon.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to speak in support of this, and it's in no way to cut any benefits to veterans who need them. It's just that we're so far below this number that it's just getting transferred to any variety of things, and I'd rather just have it go where it's needed. Thank you.
Councilor Tallman.
Yeah, I'm also in support of this. Everybody knows that I'm very much in support of the Veteran Services and all the work that they do, and of course, of the people the transients and the people on the streets that are need help. And I think there's a lot of programs, and Jesus is really outreaching to get a lot of help to those individuals. But as was stated earlier, there's been a couple transfers in the past year out of this department. I mean, probably just within the last month or two. We had some transfers, so I think $10,000 is a fair cut, and if he does need more coming down the road, I'm sure he'll get it.
Of course.
Anyone else?
Councilor Rivera.
Councilor Rivera.
Thank you. I just have a question. How much did we get reimbursed over like the last 2 or 3 years?
Is it
75% of whatever they spend.
in the state?
You'd have to ask them exactly how much
have
you
to
spent.
spend it.
Right,
Yeah.
so that way I
We
can have
go
a better
through-
number
We
with
could go through
regards
the
to-
through the general ledger reports.
That way we can have a better
Which is how I
number
do it.
of how much money is actually being played with instead of 75% or something. You know what I mean? Like, I need to know actual numbers.
Well, in 2022, it was 102,000.
I don't want to play with make
So
pretend.
that was 75,000.
2,000?
In 2022.
It was only $2,000 that we got reimbursed.
102,000, so 75% would have been roughly 75,000 that we got reimbursed. But you have to spend it to get it. You can't just budget it and get it. You have to actually spend it.
Right.
That's not a real number, but thank you. I appreciate the help for
It's the
that.
2022.
That's a real number.
It
It's a
is?
real number from
That's the number that's in the ledger?
75% of 102.
Not in the ledger, no, not
right
in
in
the,
your
yeah.
budget.
Not in the ledger?
Not in here, no.
Oh, okay.
From 2022.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
All right. Councilor McGivern.
In 2020, we spent $380,000.
Right.
And that was reimbursed at the 75%, but only after the
Spend.
veterans got their direct benefit.
Yeah.
All right.
Seeing no one further, clerk will call a roll. If you vote yes, you're voting to cut by 10,000.
Anderson Burgos,
Yes.
Bartley,
Yes.
Givner,
Yes.
Jordan,
Yes.
Maldonado Velez,
No.
McGee,
Yes.
McGivern,
Yes.
Murphy Ramboletti,
Yes.
Coelho,
Yes.
Israel Rivera,
Yeah, no. No.
Jenny Rivera,
No.
Tallman,
Yes.
Bacon.
Yes.
10 yeas, 3 nays.
10-3, you approve the cut by 10. Anything else on 44? $45, library. $46, Department of Recreation. $47, Department of Parks. $48, Museum. $49, War Memorial Commission. 50, Exhibit Hall. 51, Debt, Principal, and Interest. 52. 53, Insurance Claims, Benefits, Travel. 54. 55, Wastewater Treatment Plant. 56. 57. I do believe that is it.
President, make a motion that we pass the second reading of the budget.
Second.
Minus the amendments that were made this evening, and therefore adopting the budget for fiscal 2024.
Is there a second?
Second.
So motion is to pass the second reading as amended. Our discussion, Councilor Jordan.
I'll help if I turn my microphone on. Just wanted to make a couple points on the overall budget and my concerns and why I'm going to vote no on the overall budget at this time is I know the mayor is he's got a new approach and he's doing his very best to try and sort of look at this not as one single time with the budget, but as a sort of an evolving target, if you will, as new information and different things come to light. But I have to say, there's a few things that I think overall continue to concern me about the overall city finances. One is that 4 fiscal years, this budget is held together with $2 million in ARPA money. Okay, and that is true again this year. So $8 million. So I know we're talking about, oh, look at us. You know, we got $4 million in free cash. Well, what would we really have if we had no ARPA that just happened to come our way? Right? That's good fortune that the federal government was handing out money, but nevertheless, that still is something we have to keep our eyes on. The number, which also, by the way, emphasizes the fact that we have a large structural deficit in the budget. The other thing that I'm concerned about is the revenue estimates that are used here. Obviously, we're looking at the expense side, but also on the revenue side. I am extremely concerned that you're looking at, in this levy, a between 4.5% to 4.75% tax levy increase by voting for this budget. Now, I know the mayor says that down the road, he hopes that he's going to have other things come our way so that we won't actually have to increase taxes by that amount. That, to me, is not a sustainable number, though. I can't in good conscience vote for this tonight and say that I'm in favor of a 4.75% tax increase on the residents of Holyoke. And that's really what you would need at this point to make this budget balanced. And so therefore, at this point, based on the projections, cannot support that. So, you're talking a huge increase again in the levy, and the residents simply cannot afford that kind of a levy increase. So, we're talking, over $2.7 million increase in the levy. I mean, that is enormous, and I'm not sure we've ever increased taxes by that amount. Now, will that in the end happen by the time we set the taxes? We don't know yet. But what we can say is what we're voting on today, it says that this is what you're signing up for, is that degree 4.7% tax increase on the residents. And I cannot support that. We'd have to find other ways to make this budget balance other than on their backs. I don't think they, in these inflationary times, could take another 4.7% hit in their property taxes. Thank you.
Counselor Bacon.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I will own that I did not make recommendations to cut positions this year, but, reading the room, I didn't think there'd be any appetite for them anyway. And I understand the arguments of the various departments for making them. And I guess what I will say is, in the case of the grant writer and in the case of the treasurer's office, I sure hope their projections about adding these people prove true, because if we're faced with a deficit next year, we're going to be actually cutting positions that we just added this year. So I'm very uncomfortable to be adding new positions into the city budget when I see what's coming down the fiscal road. Nonetheless, I hear strong support for the arguments, and I just hope they pan out over the next year. Thank you.
Counselor McGivern.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will be voting in favor of the Mayor Garcia's budget. I believe overall it's a fair budget. There are some questions more as to additional needs, which, as we all know, when the state has not finalized their budget, we still have until the time we set the tax rate and finalize it, which unfortunately goes way too late in the year, but hopefully future years, maybe even this year, it'll happen earlier. There are things that are missing in the budget and things that, could be added. There's always the chance of supplemental budgets. But if you look at the tax levy, the mayor is, for the second year in a row, not taking full advantage of the tax increase. Therefore, it is giving a break to homeowners. When the discussion of the recap sheet, I asked why we didn't have projected new growth and why that wasn't taken into consideration, and that was adjusted, and we got some better ideas about what new growth is. Because new growth is new tax dollars, but not an increase to taxpayers. It's additional tax dollars based on the new growth itself. So there's a lot of ways to look at this. It's not the perfect way to do business. I think the city councils of the future have got to be careful of this type of a budget approach. But I think Mayor Garcia has been very transparent and very fair, and he's proven that to us. And I think working with him is the key. So therefore, I support the budget as amended this evening, and will vote yes.
Counselor Murphy-Ramaletti.
I was just actually kind of confused. There's no new positions in the treasurer's office, right?
Yeah, there is.
Yes,
There's
one.
Yeah.
One new position.
Yep.
One new position
Yep.
that we didn't cut,
Correct.
not the CAFO.
It's
No.
a
Right.
position
That was in the mayor's office.
It existed prior. It hasn't been funded in many years.
Right.
So
Okay,
it's
all right, all
newly
right, all
funded.
right. Cool. Thank you. I'm going to vote for the budget. Thanks.
Counselor Rivera.
Yeah, for me, I'm voting in favor of the budget mostly because I'm feeling like we're working and we're moving in a direction where we're trying to mitigate issues as they arise, but at the same time be preventative in the future. And when you take preventative measures and you try to work on, forecasting for the future on certain issues and topics, and I believe CSO is one of them, you gotta kind of spend money, and that's the piece, right? I think for a very long time we've been I want to say frugal, right? But not frugal, not because we're cheap, but because we don't have the money, right? We don't necessarily have the money. And because we don't have the money, a lot of our departments, a lot of different things throughout the city have been lacking for not just a couple of years, actually for a couple decades. So again, I ran on the premise of ending the bottlenecking, right? So yes, I will vote on some things that cost a little more and sound a little more progressive, but at the end of the day, I have to do something different than what's been done for like the last 20 years. So that's why I'm voting yes, and I am trying to do my best and moving the city in the right direction. Thank you.
Councilor Tallman.
Yes, I think that this budget is fair. I'm not agreeing with everything that's in there. I think the mayor's really got some creative ideas into this budget. Izzy, you saying the last 20 years you're blaming me? Okay. Okay, I've been here, but I'll take the knocks. But no, the mayor I believe has really been transparent. I think this is the best times that the council and the mayor have been working together in years. I mean, really looking at everything, and he's trying a different approach in different things, and I think it's a new way. How many times have we had consulting people come in and look at all these different departments? In a police department or the treasurer's office or the DPW with the sewer. He's doing things that and there's also some funds that stabilization funds that we've had that he put into here. I mean, capital stabilization that we haven't had in years. So I really believe that the mayor's doing things well. When people ask me, how do you feel the mayor's doing in the city? I feel he's doing a fair job. I mean, we're not always going to agree. You can do things differently, but this is the checks and balances, he brings forward, and we're the ones that look at it and say, we go along with you on this one, but there's times that we won't. So that's the thing. I think working together is really something that we should do in the coming years, and I feel this budget is fair, and I'll be voting to support it.
Oh, and
Councilor Tomlin just said it's all the prior mayors that were the problem.
that was it.
You weren't one of them, were you?
Especially the acting ones.
The acting
those are the
ones,
ones you really got to keep a close eye on. Those
Gotta
guys.
watch out for that. Councilor Anderson Burgos.
I think it's safe to say that not everyone's going to agree on a budget. It's just not. It's not normal, right? We can't always agree. But what I will state is that I feel that our mayor has really put before us a very thoughtful budget. Something that is a little different than our past mayors. I'm not taking any shots. I think this is a budget that I am very comfortable to support, and that's it. Thank you.
Anyone further? Councilor Jordan.
Yeah, I just want to be clear, and I have a very good working relationship with our mayor. This is no reflection on him. It's just the numbers are what the numbers. My no vote is not an anti-Garcia vote by any means. I'm just reacting to the fact of I have a levy here that's proposed to go up $2.8 million, which I know the residents cannot possibly afford on top of everything else they're facing. And when we ultimately get to a point that hopefully 2.8 becomes some smaller number, I think the other thing we as a city have to really deal with the fact is this ARPA of $2 million, so this is installment, 3 of the 2 million? Then we've got another one coming up. How are we weaning off of that? Because otherwise in 2 years, you start off the year at 2 million. You also have $1 million drop in local receipts in this budget.
That's scary.
Okay, there's some factors here that are much bigger than the mayor. Is he doing an extremely thoughtful job? Absolutely. And him and I speak all the time, and we're very close on a lot of these things. But the fact of the matter is there's going to be some difficult decisions in the road ahead.
Anyone further? All right. So what'll happen now is the clerk will call the roll. If you vote yes, you're voting for the budget as amended. If you vote no, it's, as I think people have said, it's not against the mayor. It's basically the numbers.
Yep.
I'll say absolutely, because it's my last time. Probably one of the best budgets we worked on because every department head showed up. I think mayor was here all the time, but not only departments, but the councilors. our attendance was almost 100% at every single meeting. Some people had to leave or come late, and to me, that screams volumes to the residents and taxpayers of Holyoke. This council was fully vested in watching this budget and making sure. There are problems, I'm not going to lie to you. Councilor Jane pointed some out, but it is a moving target that will change over time. What that'll be, unfortunately, we have to wait and see. So with that, I want to thank all the counselors for their hard work, the department heads for spending a lot of time with us to help us walk us through this, and the mayor for his efforts to try and deal with the issues that have been presented by all of us. So one of the best budgets can honestly say I worked on, simply because everyone did work together to help out. So with that, clerk will call a roll. If you vote yes, voting for the budget as amended.
Anderson Burgos,
Yes.
Bartley,
Yes.
Givner,
Yes.
Jordan,
No.
Maldonado Velez,
Yes.
McGee,
Yes.
McGivern,
Yes.
Murphy Ramboletti,
Yes.
Boileau,
No.
Israel Rivera,
Yes.
Jenny Rivera,
Yes.
Tallman,
Yes.
Bacon.
No.
10 yeas, 3 nays.
Vote is 10-3.
Make a motion that we adjourn.
Motion
Second.
is
Second.
to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We stand adjourned. Thank you, everybody.